I've known my life was going to end in suicide since I was 5 years old, right around the time I found my uncle swinging from the attic rafters. To say it messed me up is a gross understatement. For years, I actually thought that's just how people die. You live long enough and are then obligated to take yourself out to make room for younger generations. Growing up with an abusive grandmother didn't help. Nor did the bullies at school. I think the only reason I lived past high school was my terrifying fear of the unknown. To combat that, I watched online videos of death and searched for creepypastas with suicide as the key word, all to help familiarize myself with the sounds, images, and imagined pain that would occur. But the structure of school helped, and I did have a few friends who ended up hanging out with me more than I was alone. Somehow I made it to graduation. But then my friends moved away. I dropped out of college, and I found myself living alone, working retail. I know what you're thinking now, but I wasn't driven to suicide by my day at work. It wasn't a great day. It was still retail, but it was about as good as it gets. When I was driving home at the end of the day, nothing made me turn the wheel other than my own intrusive thought. Nor did I have help taking off my seatbelt or pushing my foot down on the accelerator. I was aiming for the back of a truck that was parked at a red light, waiting for a chance to turn. I mentally calculated the speed I needed to ensure my death, and I slowed down a bit to match my result. I didn't want the truck driver to die or get horribly injured. I hoped his truck bed would keep him safe instead. In the short time before impact, to steel my resolve, I imagined just how it would mangle my body. I could picture each bone breaking, and in turn how my skin would split and rupture. After years of 4chan lurking, I felt comfortable with this end. To my horror, the truck suddenly peeled forward. Maybe he had glanced in his rearview mirror and saw that I wasn't going to stop. Or maybe he was just showing off his surprisingly powerful truck. Either way, he was gone in a flash, and I found myself hurling towards nothing. I then hoped I'd get lucky, and a T-bone from another car would finish what I'd started. Instead, the light turned green, just as I approached the intersection. Numb at my bad luck, I blew through the intersection and jumped the curb into a Swift Ease gas station. The curb popped my tires, and it took a lot of momentum away, but I still hit that gray sedan hard. What happened next is kind of confusing, but I've thought about it a lot, and I think my car was mostly standing up on the front two tires when it crashed head-on. I feel like I fell down through my windshield, but only after it had already been shattered, denying me death again. I landed on my back, half in his windshield and half on top of his hood, he being the owner of the gray car. A perfectly ordinary-looking middle-aged bald man. His car had been pushed back some distance, and I could only smile while looking up at his shocked expression. Well, the shock didn't last long, though, as he started to scream obscenities and roughly grab me. With little effort, he lifted me high above his head and slammed me to the ground. Before I hit, I could already feel my mouth filling with blood. After I hit the concrete with a sickening wet slap kind of sound, I didn't feel much of anything. I assumed this was now to be my end. The victim of road rage. Or parked rage, whatever. Yet, the mad driver ignored me as soon as I was out of the way, and he spent the next few minutes pushing and pulling the remains of his windshield out of his car. I took this time to use his car as a makeshift ladder to stand up. Feeling was starting to return, and I was finally beginning to regret my impulsive attempt at self-destruction. I had many lacerations, some of them quite deep. From the extreme pain that just breathing was causing, I could tell a few ribs at least were broken. I leaned heavily on the car as I worked my way towards the back and paused only to admire my reflection in the back window. To my emo delight, I was crying blood. I had absolutely no pain at this point. I did know that I didn't want another body slam, so I continued trying to move in the other direction towards some hopefully more sympathetic onlookers. The trunk had popped open, so I looked inside just because that's what you do when you pass an open trunk. Looking back at me was a little blonde-haired girl in a dirt-stained flower-covered dress, bound by rope and gagged with a rag. Maybe it was the chemicals flooding my brain, trying to save me from the trauma already received, but I wasn't even surprised. Of course, the jerk owner of this car would be some kind of kidnapping monster. However, I didn't have a chance to react before said owner slammed the trunk shut and poked me hard with the gas nozzle to push me away from his car. I guess he had picked it up to return it, but he must have realized what I saw because he started spraying me all over. The pain where the gas met open wounds was excruciating. He very well might have been planning on lighting me up. Then and there, I saw him reach into his right pocket for something when he noticed the growing crowd of witnesses. My briefly flying car had caused quite a stir. Instead, he put the nozzle up and pulled me in close. He acted like he was whispering something in my ear, but I heard nothing. I felt, however, a series of painful short punches to my chest. Then he pulled away and hopped into his driver's seat. I tried to warn the crowd. I tried to scream, but my lungs weren't working right. Those weren't punches. The driver had stabbed me with a short blade. Fresh blood poured down the front of my shirt. I couldn't fuel my voice with air to reach anyone else, not even the girl that was hidden just an arm's length away. But I could stumble. The driver was having trouble starting the car. I had time. I moved my left foot forward and then my right. I grabbed the back passenger door and opened it before the driver realized it needed to be locked. Again, I had no plan. I was really only hoping to make this murderer's life a little more difficult. He managed to start the car before I carefully eased myself in, but he needed to reverse out of my wreck's way. He did so with a simultaneous turn, and I felt myself flung face first into the back seat. The door slammed shut behind me, and the kidnapper kept driving. I sure showed him, I thought, just as he turned around and stabbed me a few more times. That's when I lost consciousness. I awoke to hearing the man screaming into his cell phone. Red and blue lights were reflecting in his mirrors and on the car's ceiling. However, the driver didn't actually seem that concerned about them. Rather, he was telling someone about how expensive the car's interior was and how the last thing he needed today was some loser crawling inside his car just to die. That's when I noticed the blood. I was still laying face first in the back seat, but enough blood had come out to create a pool on the floorboard near me. I felt like the tire of a car that had been driven too fast over a curb by a suicidal retail employee. A lot of me was now missing. With nothing better to do, I tried to get up, just to spread the gore around and really drive up this guy's cleaning bill. While failing to do much else, I did manage to turn my head high enough to notice a small skeleton sitting in the front passenger seat. It was turned around facing me. I initially thought it was a sick joke of the driver's, especially since the skeleton was roughly the same size as the girl in the trunk. But no, The skeleton raised a bony finger to its non-existent lips and then reached into the driver's right pocket. I know, it probably was just delirium setting in, and I was reaching in there instead. But I saw and felt a skeleton right then. It handed me what it found there, a cheap yellow lighter. With all my strength, I flicked the striker on top and immediately felt the immense heat cover and consume my gasoline-soaked body. The whole time I had been lying there, fumes from my gasoline-soaked body had been filling the car. The skeleton had vanished in the fireball, but its job was done. I remember thinking that this wasn't a bad way to go, but right before I lost consciousness again, I had a better thought. No one was ever going to miss me. But at least this way, a girl was saved. Not a bad trade in my opinion. Of course, you know what happened next. Your police swarmed the car and removed all three of us from it alive. That gangster will be behind bars for the rest of his life. And even then, he only gets off that light in exchange for his testimony, bringing the whole kidnapping ring down. I ended up surviving, even though none of the doctors can agree on how I'm doing it. And a little girl got to be reunited with her family. They have visited me loads of times since I've been here and have been really great. You've been really nice too, Detective. It was awfully nice of you to conclude my initial crash was an accident before even getting to interview me due to the coma I was in. Really, everyone has been fantastic to me. But more importantly, there is someone particular that I do not want to disappoint. A certain little blonde-haired girl. That's why I need a really big favor from you. You probably already know what to do, since you'll only get a chance to read this once I'm gone. Please, cut my body down and put me back in bed before someone else sees me hanging there like my uncle. Tell them whatever you think will be least traumatizing. Thank you. Alright, my lovely lilies, thank you so much for watching the new video. If you can, hit that subscribe and like button, comment below and tell me your thoughts. Also, don't forget to tap the little notification bell so you're always in the know on this channel. As well, guys, you can always find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and always you can hit me up in my emails. Feel free to send me your stories, whether they're fiction or totally true. I'm always up for some great stories. And oh, by the way, until next time, sweet dreams.